Hello and welcome to a new Ostrich video, and today we are going to talk about our altimeter, one of the basic instruments you find basically in every single aircraft. So let's start with the question, how does the altimeter works? The altimeter is one of the barometric instruments, what simply means it measures the air pressure around us to give us the information we need. And the altimeter is basically a sealed box that is connected to the static port on the side of our aircraft. So the static pressure can flow into the instrument, and inside the instrument we have a can filled with air. And in this graphic you can see this in green. And as the can is sealed, the pressure inside stays always constant. And therefore the forces acting on the can from the inside are constant as well. Now, the static pressure is acting from the outside onto the can. Now, if we climb, the air around gets thinner and therefore the static pressure decreases, and therefore also the forces acting from outside onto the can decrease. And that, on the other hand, allows the can to expand, and over some linkages move then the index pointers of our instrument so that we can read off our current altitude. So the altimeter measures the air pressure to determine our altitude. But unfortunately the air pressure is not only determined by the altitude, but also by the meteorological conditions. And we have to take this account. So to correct for this, we have to set the current pressure in our Kollsman window, what you can see here, by turning this knob. So in North America we get pressure in inches of mercury. Or if you are on the rest of the world, you get it in hectopascals, so you have always keep in mind to use the correct scale. And usually we use the QNH, and NH stands for natural height. So this shows us the height above sea level. So if you are at the airport and you set your QNH correctly, your altimeter should show the airport elevation. In some cases, so for example, if you fly a closed pattern around the airport or for aerobatics, sometimes also for glider flying, we can use the QFE. QFE stands for field elevation, and this gives us the height above ground. And if you set the QFE, it should show a 0 at the airport no matter what airport elevation you are on. And if we are passing our transition level, what is like 5,000 feet in most of Europe, we set the altimeter to standard pressure, what is 1013.25 hectopascal or 29.99 inches of mercury. So we do this in order to set all aircrafts flying above this area on the same height. So let's say one started in Hamburg with a QNH of 1010 hectopascal, another aircraft started in Beijing with a 989 hectopascal of QNH, and we want to have them at the same flight level. So we set standard pressure so that everyone in the flight levels does the same mistake. And if we are flying below the transition altitude, we have to keep in mind to adjust the QNH on a regular basis. Because otherwise we would be lower than expected when we are flying into a low pressure area, or higher if we are flying into a high pressure area. And this can lead to some really dangerous mistakes, especially if you're flying into a low pressure area over some mountains. And we also have to keep in mind that the temperature is influencing the density of the air as well, and therefore the indication of our altimeter. As cold air is more dense than warm air, we get an altitude reading that is higher than we actually are if the temperature is below standard temperature, and when the temperature is above standard temperature, it's the other way around. And to correct this, we have to use our flight computer to calculate the real altitude. And you always have to keep in mind that the mountains are higher in winter, what refers exactly to this effect. Now let's talk about the question how we can deal with malfunctions of our altimeter. Of course we can have some mechanical failures, and usually there's not much we can do about this in flight. So we always should check our instruments carefully in the pre-flight checks. And another problem could be a blocked static port, so you should check for this on the walk around as well. But this can also occur during flight, for example due to clear ice forming on the fuselage and then blocking our static port. In this case, the altimeter would stuck at the altitude the blockage happened. And in a GA aircraft we are usually in an unpressurized cabin, and that's a big advantage in this case, because we can just switch to the secondary static port, and this is usually inside the cabin, or we can just smash the window of our instrument and let the static pressure in from this side and solve the problem this way. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something new. If you have questions or comments, just type them below and I try to answer them as correctly and quickly as possible. And then all that's left to say is thanks for watching and see you at the next time. Bye bye.